Hi, this is Dwain Worrell, one half of the Writers Roulette podcast. On today's episode, we will be discussing Marvel's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings film. Careful for spoilers if you haven't already seen the film. If you're not a subscriber, please click the subscribe button and bell and help the channel grow. On with the show.
Hey fanboys, hey fangirls, Carnell, Holley here.
And hey everybody, this is Dwain Worrell.
Thanks for tuning in. Okay, first off, followers of the Writers Roulette podcast, welcome. Those that are just now discovering the podcast, like, I don't know where you've been, but welcome.
Yes, welcome. Carnell and I are filmmakers that discuss the archetype of filmmaking through the lens of a screenplay writer and experiences from writing fan films to Hollywood films.
This is true. Check out our IMDb pages. I was discussing with Dwain, even though we've been having issues with our schedules, trying to do the show more regularly, and we are in the process, ladies and gentlemen, of fixing that. Nevertheless, I thought it would be a good idea to move the show to my YouTube channel.
Yeah, let us know what you think and what topics we should cover.
You know, I'm just like why not? You know, like, if you already listen to us on Apple Music, it's the same thing. But listening, not just listening, but watching the video on YouTube, you're just going to get the visual aid, and it's basically just going to enhance your experience while you listen to these voices that entertain you for about a hour or so. So, that's it. I mean, I thought it was a good idea. With that out of the way, let's get into it.
The floor is yours.
All right, where to begin? Ladies and gentlemen, oh my goodness, I liked Shang-Chi. I liked the movie. Let's not get it twisted. In Marvel We Trust, I knew that I was going to like the film, but I was also disappointed in the film. And let's hear me out. Hear me out. Now, what I was actually, let me paint the picture. Leading up to going to the movie theater, I got to paint this picture. Now, prior to, I was in contact with a friend of mine, Sharif Jones, and he was saying, like, oh man, Shang-Chi is the greatest Marvel film thus far. I'm like, oh, word? Oh, okay. And then I get in contact with Dwain, and Dwain's just like, no, not the greatest film in Marvel's, no. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm like this is conflicting. I'm like, all right. So prior to, this is going to be an early birthday present. So my wife is buying the tickets, and I'm on the AMC website, and I'm just like, all right, definitely got to make it Dolby Digital, get that sounds in, good sounds, and I'm looking at 3D. I'm like, shoot, why not? I think we went to see Black Panther in 3D. I think that those were the only tickets that were left, something like that. But it wasn't bad, but it wasn't one of those like, oh man, it was like, oh man, if it wasn't in 3D, it wouldn't have been as good or whatever. So I'm like, all right, let's go with 3D. And then my wife was just like, do you really need to watch it in 3D? And then I started thinking, like, oh. Then all of a sudden, I think back to Seth Rogen's Green Hornet movie, right? Bruce Lee. And I'm a huge Bruce Lee fan, so I got him in 3D. Did not like the film. I was disappointed in the film. You're gonna see where this is going. Like follow me, ladies and gentlemen. So I did not like it, and it was a waste of money to see it in 3D. So I'm like, you know what? I guess we don't need to see it in 3D. It's not like it's an Avatar film, you know? Like, Avatar is Avatar. You need to see it in 3D. So we didn't see it in 3D. We saw the film, and I'm like, all right, cool. Enjoyed it. I knew going in that the action was going to be on point. I knew that. But what I was not expecting was that the film, what I was led to believe was that this was going to be Marvel's Enter the Dragon, the tournament. You know what I'm saying? For younger crowd, basically Marvel's Mortal Kombat. You know, and so I did not see that. But I'm just now remembering that a friend of mine, before we went to go see the film, that he texted me my phone. He texted me a tweet, and the tweet was basically Marvel's Tekken film. And if you've seen the Tekken film, that was not a good film. But I got where they were going with it. I'm like, all right, evil father. Shang-Chi is basically Jin Kazama, or is it no, Kazuya is the dad. Jin Kazama. And like, if you know the Tekken franchise, you know where I'm going with this. So I'm just like, all right, Tekken, that's good. I saw the anime. The anime wasn't bad, but the live action movie, no. So I'm just like, yo, I see this film. I go into it. I'm like, there's no Bruce Lee representation. The character Shang-Chi is based off of Bruce Lee. I mean, this experience was not on the same level as my disappointment with Iron Fist. Woo! Let's not talk about that. But I do believe now that Iron Fist is back in Marvel's hands, we're going to get a better Iron Fist. But this Shang-Chi, because both characters, Iron Fist, Shang-Chi, created during the hype of Bruce Lee. This is Marvel's Bruce Lee. I did not get a Bruce Lee. And I'm like, what's this with this comedy, with all this comedic elements in the film? I got a Jackie Chan instead of an expected Bruce Lee, and it hits different for me because I was a Bruce Lee fanboy long before I became a Black Panther fan, you know, and so. And I'm not saying. Let me clarify this. I'm not saying that I don't like Jackie Chan. Love me some Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan is awesome. But there's a clear difference between Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee. And so with all this comedy, I'm like, all right, so they're going with Jackie instead of Bruce. If I was prepped for it, and if I knew that I wasn't going to get a Bruce Lee, because even my wife mentioned, because I told her after the film that what the character is based off, and then that kind of changed her view on the film. And I'm like, I mean, true. And this is not, I mean, I guess it borderlines like, oh, but you're just a comic book purist and all. Like, no, not really. Not really. I mean, the character, this is not just some action Chinese Asian character. Like, there's a reasoning behind it. You know, we're not going with this comedic element, and I get it, looking at the bigger picture, because the same reason why, the same thing with Thor, and I'll bring up Thor again, that with the first two Thor films, they were trying to go so serious. And Shang-Chi, you know, was supposed to be a serious character in the comics. And it just, they had to pivot. and go with the comedy in the third one, and that was a really good move. And just this, it's one of those things where like, okay, you have to compare it to the Black Panther film, and I'm like, what is like, why is this not hitting the way that I feel it should, and it's just, and it was just nagging me after the film when I had time to think about it, because like going in, it's just like, all right, we have this comedy element. Aquafina is doing her comedy thing. I'm feeling it. This is coming off as a bit of a rom com, and I'm like, all right, I love rom coms. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. I mean, shoot, I watch them by myself and enjoy them. So it's just like, yo, this is what I do. I like film, and rom coms. That genre, it holds a place for me. You know what I'm saying? So don't judge me. Don't judge me. I feel I'm being judged. I feel I'm being judged, but it's okay. It's okay. You can't help what you love. So the platonic relationship that Aquafina's character and the Shang-Chi character, it was well established. You know what I'm saying? But then when they became a love interest, and it came off as weird when they made their relationship public, and like I was still scratching my head. I'm like, wait, are they now girlfriend and boyfriend? I'm like, I know they were just really good friends. I'm like, I get that, that's awesome, but then it's just like, all right, let's switch it and make them girlfriend and boyfriend when it was just fine with them being platonic friends. But okay, all right. Now the fantasy element, and I got it. I got it when they went to the I guess it was a different dimension, if I'm not mistaken. They go to this other dimension through the forest. They get to Shang-Chi's mother's homeland and this and that. And I'm like, all right, we're in this fantasy realm, basically a isekai. And those of you that huge anime fan, isekai is basically fish out of water. The hero is brought to this other world where he has to survive. Fantasy, normally a fantasy realm, and it's just totally different from the world that they come from. And I'm like, okay. And again, I'm leaving these breadcrumbs because I'm like it's all gonna make sense. It's all gonna make sense in the end. So I'm like, all right, we're there. We're in this fantasy realm. I'm like, oh shoot, nine-tailed foxes. Like, give me a Pokeball. I'm like, oh, so that's Kurama. So that's where the Kurama came from. Like, oh, wait, look over there. There's the Foo Dogs. I'm like, oh, they weren't just created from somebody's imagination. Like, these are real. They're not just these statues that thought like, oh man, they're the symbol of protection. We're gonna put these in front of temples and shrines and all that jazz. Like, all right. And again, like I said before, this is the whole Thor thing. Thor, who's an Asgardian, an alien that apparently came from another planet, eventually came to Earth, and the people of that time that seen Thor, Odin, and they created this mythology. All right, and this mythology obviously is based off of some truth, and the truth of the matter is that they're aliens, and then they were viewed as gods. I'm like, all right, so here we are establishing this Shang-Chi element, the fantasy element, and then when Shang-Chi eventually rides the dragon straight out of the never-ending story, like Shang-Chi was riding his own Falcor. It's like, yeah, like, all right, cool. All right, so we have the mythology, and ladies and gentlemen, I had these intimate conversations with a couple of my Asian friends, because I'm just like, I'm trying to figure out why I wasn't feeling it the way that I thought that I should have been feeling, and it not just being the fact that Bruce Lee fanboy didn't get his Bruce Lee, didn't get his hero, because that's my hero, that's a childhood hero. That's a big disappointment to me. But I'm like, all right, that can't be the deal breaker. So I'm having these conversations, feeling that it was established that, all right, the mythology, that was on point, the Asian representation, that was on point. I'm like, all right, cool. But in comparison to Black Panther, the Black Panther film that had to check so many boxes, otherwise they were not going to do another Black Panther film, in which I got it. And I'm just like, again, I had some would I say disappointments? I'll go with that. Disappointments as far as certain looks. Like, I would have preferred Chadwick to being on a Bruce Lee level body or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? But the boxes that needed to be checked, they were checked. And after you watch this video, listen to this video, definitely check out the Black Panther video where I discuss my views on that. There will be a link in the description. I can't even talk. In the description. So check for that after this. So what I'm thinking is that, like, I came to a realization later. This is like, all right, well, maybe the situation is that with Black Panther, our hero in Black Panther, T'Challa, was not just a character of color, was not just a black character. This character was not even African American. This character was complete African, and an African character that is in this mainstream movie that we don't normally see in the American audience doesn't normally see these types of characters. So I was just like, yo, and coming with this culture, I'm like, yo, I was like, okay. And so with Shang-Chi, this from my understanding, a Chinese American character, in which you're like, all right, I can relate with the American side, but the Chinese side, like where was the culture that I was receiving from the Black Panther film? Like I want that element in this film. And like if like thinking back to Dragging the Bruce Lee story with Jason Scott Lee's representation of Bruce Lee, when he was just like, they don't know us. They don't know the beauty of our culture, and I'm like, I want to see the beauty of this culture, and I don't think the movie really took the time to showcase that, to show the beauty and I guess the ugliness as far as the dark side of his father's character. And I'm thinking that's where where I felt that it didn't hit the same way that I thought it was going to hit as far as the Black Panther character. So that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling like I'm just getting off a roller coaster, but that's what I'm feeling, Dwayne.
Yeah.
Like I had this spell. So like tell me your side, Dwayne. Tell the audience.
All right.
This this is how I'm feeling. So I kind of know what we had a discussion off air, but I'm tagging you in. Like let us know how you feel about this film.
All right. Well, I'll come straight out and say it. I wasn't a big fan of the film. I didn't it didn't grab me. It didn't pull me in. There was a lot that I didn't like about it. So I think I should start with maybe talking about what I did like. I liked the fight sequence on the bus. I think they cast an actor who's talented at martial arts. He was a stunt guy, and he knows what he's doing when it comes to martial arts, and that shows in that bus fight sequence. He knows what he's doing. He's very talented, and I wish more of the fights were like that. That's the only fight. There's a fight between him and his sister, which isn't as good, and it's the fighting. You go to watch a martial arts film or a film that plays in the arena of martial arts. And as a martial arts film fan, I love martial arts films, and I've seen them all. When I watched this, it was a huge disappointment. Most of the fights are special effects, him flying around, floating, and using the rings like a boomerang type thing, and it's not as entertaining as I wanted it to be. So I've already dipped into some of the bad. The fight sequence and action sequences aren't great. Of course, the special effects are top notch. This is a Marvel film, but overall, the action wasn't as exciting. The main actor is, he's great at martial arts. He's an okay actor. I'm not going to say he's a bad actor, but by any means, he's okay. He does an okay job. But his chemistry with his co-star Awkwafina, it didn't really play that well. I love Awkwafina. I really do. I'm a big fan of hers and a lot of what she does. But when I saw the film and I saw them interacting, they seemed like friends. She seemed like the comic relief, not the love interest. And the love interest doesn't always have to be some supermodel woman. It's nothing like I'm not saying anything against her. It's just they didn't play it correctly. They just didn't feel at the end of the film they're like holding hands. I'm like, wait a second, when did that happen? So that's another issue I had with it, were those two characters. The villain, though acted by one of the greats in Tony Leung, I apologize for my pronunciation of his name. He's not a great villain. He's kind of on their side, kind of against them. It's his son, and he doesn't really want to hurt him. I never felt a great threat from him as a villain. So that was another big issue, having the villain as someone who isn't intimidating, someone who you're not as worried about. And this, we're slipping into spoilers now. So if you haven't seen the film, definitely cut off at this point. But at the end of the film, what's revealed is that Tony Leung's character, and this is the villain, is hearing his wife's voice from behind this great barrier. But he's being deceived. Behind this great barrier is a monster of some sort. And this is the big, big bad. Well, this big bad is introduced within the last 5 minutes of the movie. He's never really been mentioned before. I mean, we get a little hearsay from Michelle Yeoh's character about, there's this great creature behind it, but this creature doesn't exist in the film. And when we see it, it's just sort of out of nowhere, and then a dragon pops out of the water out of nowhere, and it's this fight. And Awkwafina, who wasn't really well trained, she started taking up bow and arrow lessons the day of, and is the one who ends up killing the monster. She kills I just think some of the execution of these things, it just wasn't. It wasn't the best version of it, and being someone who works in the industry, I don't like to put down films, but I have to speak honestly, and there were certain things about the film that didn't play very well. I think it's let's end on a positive note. It's great to see a film of this, with this budget level, having a protagonist who is of Asian descent. I believe he's Canadian. His parents were from China. And seeing that diversity on screen. Awkwafina, dope as hell in everything she does. And she had some great moments in this. All the jokes didn't land, but she was still her energetic self. And she's always great. So having an all-Asian cast in a film that celebrates Chinese culture is great. I just wish it wasn't done the way it was done. But, there will be a sequel, and hopefully it's stronger and there's more physical martial arts. That could have saved the film. A lot of martial arts films don't depend on their plot. They're dependent on other factors. And if they're dependent on the martial arts itself. They're dependent on those amazing fight sequences, and everyone, no one cares about the actual story. You look at films like Ong Bak or The Raid. They're very simple plots, and it's the great martial arts that I keep coming back to watch those films over and over again. So with a better focus on the martial arts and allowing the man to do what he does. Allow him to do what he does. He's a martial artist. He knows how to do the damn thing. Stop throwing all those special effects in there. Let him fight. And I think that would improve going forward. I know Kevin Feige and Marvel don't care what I say. The movie did great, and that's good. It made hundreds of millions of dollars worldwide, and I think that's a good thing. So Shang-Chi wasn't for me, but a lot of people liked it, and that's a good thing. I'm glad people are happy with the film.
Well, that concludes episode 6 of our show. Fanboys and fangirls, thanks again for tuning in. If you want to continue the conversation in the comments below, express what you felt about the show, express what you felt about Shang-Chi the movie. I mean, man. Dwain, thanks again for your insight.
Yo, thank you, Carnell, and thank you, fine folks, for listening in. And we'll see you next time on another dope episode of Writers Roulette.